The manhwa starts under the moonlit sky. A man says the time has come and adds after the demonic sect destroyed their clan, they survived only for revenge. Hands begin to emerge from the shadows, and this makes everyone involuntarily tense. He confidently announces, soon everyone will notice because the guards have disappeared, and he will bring everything to an end before that happens. The bloodshed continues, and somewhere nearby an old voice sounds, outside too loud. He raises his eyes and we immediately see, they are deep dark red in color. Outside, the man insists as if imagining a picture of calm. He is just meditating while his subordinates are being killed and that he, as always, is heartless. The old man replies that he could say the same about this man. He is fussing and understands nothing. He declares that he is heartless and adds, a person who climbs the mountain does not care about the insects underfoot. Of course, he would not do that. He would look at the summit, and that is the path to the peak of martial arts. The man mutters that this is nonsense. Finally, we learn his name, Kang Woonchun. He promises that today he will kill him with his own hands, and then it becomes clear, the old man is a heavenly demon. Woonchun bursts forward and a blue aura bursts from his head, flashing like a spark. He begins charging lightning with it, and this is called the Heavenly Fist of Lightning. He strikes the heavenly demon right in the face and laughs, as if to say, that's all he's capable of. Then he extends his hand, employing the martial art Heavenly Blood Tide, and orders Woonchun to watch and learn. When he begins to release a real energy beam, he is met by Woonchun's fist slices through the air in an energy battle in the style of Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, the heavenly demon wins, flying right past Woonchun's hand. This wound. His face twists in recognition. He understands that the energy beam is the key to the sword. The heavenly demon says that today he will send him to his father and that he has finished everything. But Woonchun thinks otherwise and immediately activates another technique. The heavenly demon looks stunned as Woonchun launches an attack with a palm strike, the heavenly divine palm. We see him breaking the energy beam. The heavenly demon exclaims in surprise. He cannot believe it because the tempered fist, harder than steel, lost with bare hands. Next, Woonchun hits right in the chest, pushing the light forward with his strike. He straightened his whole body and flew into the wall behind him. Woonchun begins to suffocate and presses through words. He needs to stop talking about his father with his dirty mouth. And probably he has not forgotten all the evil deeds he committed in his life. That's why he felt the anger of all those people. The heavenly demon says, then he would have destroyed the roots of the Cloud Dragon sect. He still does not understand what kind of enlightenment he received and is sincerely surprised and cannot believe it at all. His heavenly demonic blood influx art broke everything and thereby left no other choice. He pulled out some calabash and forced to swallow it. Woonchun asks if it is an elixir, while the old man begins to gulp down this filth. Woonchun says that if he drinks an elixir of such a dose at once, he will experience a demonic key deviation. Purple energy shatters the vessel as the heavenly demon begins to gain strength. His ki overflows, but it is so strong that his face begins to tense. When his eyes bulge, he emits a very powerful roar to send. He released a shockwave around and forced Woonchun to raise his hands to shield himself from the wind rushing past him. But from behind, and as soon as he turns around, the attack is already in full swing. The heavenly demon says it's time for him to disappear. Then it raises a protective shield around Woonchun, and Woonchun thinks, recognizes but still just marvels, the man. He comes in, apologizes for being late, and says he was held up by idling. And the guy says he ordered him not to call himself by that lame nickname, then throws a question, is this the same enemy he was talking about? Woonchun claims that this is the man who insists. He came from another world and without him Woonchun would have died helpless. The man loudly demands to wait. He says he thought this would be an ordinary story about Murama. He still can't grasp where suddenly some unfamiliar high-level mage from another world came from. He sighs and adds that he used to enjoy reading, but now all this together just completely ruins his mood. He mutters that the author is probably on fentanyl. How can it even fit in the head that another world appeared? And here we are introduced to the hero, Jin Seowon. He is 23 years old. His phone starts vibrating and we learn that 6 months ago he was fired, and now he is preparing to return to college. His boyfriend writes to him, suggests playing ranked matches, and seemingly surprised asks if he has no one to play with at all. He replies that, like many after service, before discharge he had a clear plan for the future. He wanted to collect certificates, planned to return to college and make up for what he didn't manage during his army service, only he missed out too much on social life. He sets off to the city and says that he still has some money left, but hesitates whether it is already worth looking for a side job. He adds that, as a fan of Murama's novels, he spent a lot of time in fantasies imagining himself as the main character of Murama's world. He enters an internet cafe. The cashier calls him by name and asks if he is shaking again today on loyal ground. C1 nods yes and asks for 10 hours. He replies that our guys have also already immersed themselves in the loyal ground. And although during vacations he played only this game, after demobilization he took it seriously and in 3 months got into the top 10. He goes into Discord and tells his guy that he has joined. Let him wait in the lobby. He also earned a little more in tournaments that are sometimes held right in the internet cafe. 100 players jump out of the plane, collect scattered weapons on the map, and start the slaughter until only one remains. That is how he explains what he means by PUBG. Then he gives coordinates and tells his guy there are 2 people there. He orders his son to look at 120, saying there is a compass at the top in the game. As soon as he starts shooting and immediately shoots both, a double headshot. His son screams and declares that now only 2 people remain. Saewon says, "I am so loud and have already died once," and wonders why he still talks so much, then suggests meanwhile farming and staying alive before leaving. They need to find a safe zone. And the guy says he will only believe in him. The Circle Titan's other players are visible, already running to B. They look at the ground and find loot, for example, a first aid kit, and surprisingly pull it. It's still here. It seems he didn't enter, but it's clear it's a trap, and anyone who played. You would definitely notice, when he goes to take the free loot, the character Saewon appears on the screen, sitting in the corner. Just sat in place and waited, and the guy outside hears shots, sees that his teammate is dead, and he says he can't believe it. He was hiding here, so he must get out of here. But he runs away instead of replacing his teammate. And a shot hits him right in the back of the head. Now he is the last one. Saewon, his friend, thanks him for carrying him, and he just cuts in. Get in line already. Ready, and he should focus and start studying tomorrow. Words we all said, but still procrastination is heard. A message comes to the phone. He glanced at the screen, and immediately they ask if he is studying well. They tell him that the money for academy tuition has already been sent, with a small addition so there is something to eat. They apologize that they can't do more. He thanks her. Later it becomes clear, it's his mother, and he replies that he will go to sleep soon. He writes to his friend that from tomorrow he will no longer play, and the friend insists. They had agreed to go together to the clan war, but he cuts him off. He can't. He must start attending English courses, and every time he sees a message from his mother, he is overwhelmed with guilt. This is how he has been living for months. After that quarrel at night, he incessantly scrolls through alarming news on his phone. Some short videos feature people who say they noticed individuals with mysterious abilities abroad, and these same people call themselves players. Saewon says that he just tried to click to learn more, but the video suddenly deleted itself. The fact that this is a family is strange, but he simply decides to sleep through it. He is heading to the academy, and the son says that preparations must be made for the clan war. Saewon says that he wants to help him in the last game. He remains on the floor, and after him, no other trace remains. The wounded man begins to guess what that light was and says, "I just decided to study, but perhaps it could have been a punishment for daring too late." Slowly opening his eyes, he hears people speaking Russian and wonders. Loud conversations do not let him rest. Then he shifts his gaze forward and sees people clashing in a fight, swords and magic combining in a strike. Watching them cast spells, he cannot shake the thought, maybe this is a dream. Noticing the statue, he is still completely confused. The statue says that 100 players detected. Sivan freezes and thinks why there is a voice in his head, a kind of slightly noisy crowd. They say the system initialization has started, and we see the same blue screen. In Saevon's eyes, confusion is visible. Next, it talks about language synchronization, and the just heard Russian is immediately translated into Korean. Ahead, some fat man declares that from now on everyone will speak his language. We show several people from the Muram setting. They talk about sex, and even mages discuss this. One asks Hyern what he did for them to end up in this situation. Hyern only replies that he would actually like to ask the same and glances at Escrow. Why did he bring him here? Escrow declares that he is truly shameless, and from now on will not believe Hyern's words. Hyern replies, it does not matter whether Escrow believes or not, everyone is destined to one day kneel before the power of the Demon King. Escrow, like an archmaster, promises that it will be so, and begins to summon lightning in his hand. He says he will kill him here and then, very soon, will finish off the Demon King as well. He activates the ability Escrow-style lightning and strikes Hiron right where he is. Escrow says that he is the one who dragged him here, and Seo-woon notices every detail and immediately understands. This is too realistic to be a dream. Then the statue says, the game is about to begin. Difficulty easy, you need to get into the top 90. The chosen map is the capital of the Kingdom of King. Rewards will be given to players in the top 10 and above. The tutorial is skipped, and attacking in the waiting room is not allowed. Everything there is neutralized. The map appears before Seo-woon. The statue addresses those entering Cloyd Survival for the first time. It says it intends to give them a brief explanation. The game will last 100 years, and every day the map on which they fight will narrow slightly. If they go beyond the limited area, they can receive colossal damage, so do not take risks unnecessarily. Everything will continue until only one participant remains. If the game ends or you are eliminated, you will return to your native world. Those who do not get into the top 90 will not be able to participate in Floyd's survival again. Soon, thanks to Argus's gaze, they will descend where they want. They will obtain items there, use them, and be able to break into the top 90. The statue wishes them luck. Seo-woon wonders, maybe he is dreaming right now about the true land. The status window says that rewards will be given to those in the top 10 and above. Suppose the wound sweats from anxiety and says that even if it were a dream, he would still have to find himself among all these crazy people. We see a guy licking his knife. Weirdo. Let's say the wound understands, he will definitely die. He says, even if this is a dream, he doesn't want it, and if everything really looks like a game. But before he manages to finish the thought, someone calls him and calls him messy. The guy asks why he keeps looking back, and each time concludes where he is from. Imagine, the wounded man does not answer, and the dude is already about to swing his blade at his side and ask if he is ignoring him. The game starts the countdown and he smiles. The dude asks why he is smiling in such a situation, and says that he is crazy. Easy, as soon as the countdown reaches 1, Seo-woon says that it is A. There is a very simple reason why he smiles. He is dreaming such a fun dream that he enjoys it to the fullest. Also, having knowledge about the game that he recorded in the log, he can easily defeat scoundrels like him and survive. Now is the first day of the survival of the Cloyds, and everyone starts jumping out of the airship, which actually, they exist and just fly down, covered by an aura. I see exactly where this gnome is looking. Seo-woon says that they descend into tight places, where there are piles of things. According to the rules of the game, there really are more in crowds, but he is sure, it's better to start from the outskirts, it's safer there. When he plunges rapidly into the ground, he screams out of panic. He is unharmed, he does not move immediately after landing and in. Instead, he has to hold back. Vomiting the motion makes him so nauseous that he barely holds on. He says that for now, he just needs to enter the house, and he starts running and repeats. The rocking was such that he did not see who landed with him. Without stopping, he rushes forward, flies through the door, and enters the house. He warns, if he encounters an enemy without a weapon on him, it's the end for him. And he mutters that he wonders, could it really not be that scoundrel swordsman who was seen earlier, and could he really not be provoked? No one says anything, but probably it was just the wind, and fortunately, he no longer hears anything, so he can move on. He wants to start snooping around the house. They say things appear where you land, so he needs to look for them here. Someone tells him that he got a heavy crossbow. He replies that the crossbow is too heavy. But still, it's better than nothing. He reaches out to the quiver and pulls out an arrow. He says this while loading it, and how to use it comes to mind by itself, so he starts reloading. For a South Korean army sergeant, this is a trifle. And he does exactly that incredibly powerfully. The projectile breaks through half the wall and throws him back. He says it will be quite useful if he learns to use it properly. He looked around once more and saw nothing, and that's why. As soon as the map grows to such a scale, he rushes to a few more buildings. He says if he doesn't encounter an enemy right at the start, he can calmly farm this area. A scroll lies on the table in front of him, and I received a small scroll of healing. If torn wounds will heal. He cannot believe that such an item actually exists and says that it is. He needs to find even more healing items, and he wants to have a bag for them. He notices a glowing purple book on the shelf next to him, and he picks it up, and it says that he received the martial arts book of the Black Star Leader. This martial art allows him to emit dark energy through his fingers. She touches his fingers and asks if he wants to learn it. He thinks this might trigger a tutorial or something like that. It flashes too brightly, and the pages start flipping right before his eyes. His face freezes, and then the book slowly begins to disintegrate. He looks at his hands confused and is not sure if that was all. The energy grows stronger with every second. Fill the table with energy, then throw it with all your might at the neighboring wall. He smiles and declares that he actually learned the martial art just from the book. He looks at the wall and says that now it will be truly good. The fact that there are books on martial arts should also mean books on magic. But the main thing is he is sure Chloe's survival and her loyalty are one and the same. He searched the whole place, so now he goes out and heads to another. The events jump forward a bit. He says that the sun has already risen while he was working in the field, so he needs to quickly find a place to hide. The thought comes from him that this is the only house with the light on. The fact that the light is on can mean only one of two things. Either a rare item is hidden inside or nothing else. He slowly slips inside, trying not to make a sound. He says he doesn't know how many people landed near him, but if someone is here, it could be either a complete pro or a total novice. He is nervous and looks around to see if they are hiding behind the second one. He says he has a weapon, and if he catches them off guard with Blackstar technique, even if they are pros, he has a chance. I want to find out if this is also an item. It is called the Ring of Power and increases the user's strength by 21 when worn. He thinks, could it really make him stronger just because? He says that his whole body has become lighter because now he hardly feels the weight of the crossbow, although before it was very heavy. If this gave him 20 strength, maybe he can check if it is really so. He looks for his stats and starts going through words to extract at least some information about the character. He managed to make it appear, and this only once again emphasized how pathetic he is. He is tormented by the thought he is probably considered a martial arts master only because he learned one martial art. He says, pretty cool, but means something completely different, like this is compared to how he started from nothing. He is already having fun, so he wants to continue carefully inspecting the first floor. He finds a subspace ring and realizes this is exactly what he was looking for earlier. There he says that he is constantly called on the phone and that, supposedly, is very convenient. In the status window it is written, to put an item you need to take it and say or think the word subspace. If he touches the ring with the other hand while thinking about the needed item, the item will go into the subspace. He can also take an item out of the subspace, but if the subspace is full you cannot put anything there. He says that it is almost like an inventory from a game, and they have to carry these things instead of a bag. After that he opens the subspace, and we see what lies ahead. He says that it is strange for him when he starts putting a healing scroll, and that it is convenient so he does not need to carry it like a bag, and it would be much more convenient if such a thing existed in real life. Items and martial arts would be extremely useful if he could really transfer them into reality. He asks if people have already been filtered out and says, looking at the internal interface, he is sure that a kill log will appear. Then he finds it and claims that only one has been eliminated. He was going to farm until only 90 people remained. However, he could still search houses and come across a pile of consumables, and he was also lucky to find a lot of hidden weapons that he could combine with his Black Star martial art. He says that it seems he has reviewed them all and that maybe he should hurry, better to stay here until dawn. Strong people he saw in the waiting hall walk step by step through the darkness, and with his level, it is unlikely to defeat them. But if he hides and breaks into the top 10, he can aim the scopes where they are needed like today. He says that at night there will definitely be fewer people, so he needs to check another place before dawn. The risk is justified if he manages to find a good spot. When he goes out, he says, although he was constantly moving, he is not tired at all and that the power ring is wonderful. But even when his strength increased, he still felt hunger and thirst, and maybe Floyd's survival was very similar to reality. He says he needs to eat something, so there is probably something to find in the city. On the map, it's somewhere around here, but he has no idea exactly where the buildings are. And he also hears it just behind his back. He says he heard nothing until it happened to him. They say it's actually a werewolf because there's another one nearby. While he looks up, the creature lunges in attack and flies up, and he manages to dodge. We see now 2 of them are looking at him, and my brother and I just after a 48-hour party. He says he thought this is a PvP game, so he didn't expect monsters here. If he had known how it spreads, he would have. He would have just stayed in place and formally remained a ranker, so it would have been M. It would have been shameful if the crowd killed him. He notices a house in the distance, and finally, he manages to sneak inside, closes the door, and gasps for breath. He hears werewolves on the street and has no idea if they will really come. When it approaches, he begins to think about what to do in this situation. He sees them just outside and says that, judging by how it keeps sniffing everything around, it is probably looking for something. He shoots upward through a crack in the door into the forest, piercing. He says that this is good, and thanks to the ring of power, he can shoot with one hand. Now he only has to deal with the last one. He looks around to understand where it is, and to his surprise sees, now it is standing right in front of the door. He breaks down the door like Kool-Aid Man. He realizes that this is. And he raises the crossbow and shoots, but the werewolf raises its hand and deflects the arrow. Jae-woon drops the crossbow as soon as the wolf runs up, ready to finish off. He guesses, have they already set him up for elimination? He says not yet. He pulls out some weapon, possibly even a spoon, fills it with the black star of martial arts, and easily pierces the werewolf through. Jae-woon says that he cannot be defeated by the crowd. When this also begins to disappear right before his eyes, he breathes a sigh of relief and says that he thought that's it, it's over. He kneels down and says, good thing he hid the throwing dagger earlier, because he was sure he would lose to the crowd, suffer defeat, and that would be terribly embarrassing. And in front of him on the floor lies a small packet. He immediately notices it. But as soon as he opens it, there is only water and dried meat inside. He says he can get food himself while hunting and really wishes there was something else there. When he starts chewing, he hesitates to look around or not. In the building, he finds a piece of armor and voices a guess. This might be the very same bulletproof vest from the log. At first, it seems too big for him, but at the same moment, it seems to adjust to his size. In the status window, it shows, this is an improved or calcium breastplate, and its resistance to fire and wind magic has significantly increased. He smiles, cool, and feels that more than one or two attributes have been raised. He is sure there's even more around. When he lowers his gaze down, he does not see what exactly he hit, so he angrily kicks forward and mutters what it could have been. He finds a hidden item, picks it up, and says that to the touch it resembles fabric. He throws it over himself, a night cloak. In the cloak, he stands motionless in the darkness, and it seems as if he simply blends with it. While he is hidden, magic will not notice him and all his sounds will be completely muffled. He whispers that it is like in Harry Potter. It turns out that at night he can avoid anyone he meets, and that is the best thing for survival. Thanks to this, he can stay alive exactly as long as needed. He could not figure out how a house could stand in the wilderness after all. They ran a farm there. And it seems today he will really be lucky, but still. At night he walks through the forest and says that he did not see anyone at all maybe. Probably the reason is that he accidentally ended up in the wrong place. He hears someone's footsteps behind him at just the right moment. Torn to threads, he would scream, but only if he managed to grab and use it. Imagine that the wound put on a night cloak and disappeared into the bushes. The guy insists that he cannot believe how he even came across a mage here. Jae-woon says that he does not look too strong, and if he is not mistaken, he will be able to take care of him. Jae-woon persuades himself to calm down. This is not a person, just a game, and still wonders why he has not dared to pull the trigger yet. Next, the man casts a spell called Escrow's Flame. He was hit right in the back. Those shots in the back struck without mercy. This is not a corpse, but only a chest. It seems they are definitely in the game. There should be items that belong to him, but he does not understand where this fire came from. Nearby, we see a man with a big nose who insists. He cannot believe someone, even without knowing how to use magic, dared to steal his things. He calls him a loser and says that if he had died by the sword, he would not feel the pain of burning. Jae-woon says that fortunately he did not see him and just walked past, even confident. This cloak is definitely torn. For some reason, he claims that the boy should be considered honorable for dying by his own hands, and at the same time calls him Hiron. I get a little confused by these names, but Big Nose has to check what the man dropped. Jae-woon says that the deceased was a player like him, and that the next one this man will hunt could be him. As soon as he hesitates, someone will kill him and knock out a higher rank. While Big Nose sorts through the things we see in him. An attack hits from behind. He manages to feel the blow hitting his barrier, quickly turns around and sees the barrier is cracking. The Great Nose ponders, could it be that he was too noisy when he said that the scoundrel is to blame for everything? He pulls the trigger, squeezes it tighter, and fires another shot, after which the barrier cracks again. The Great Nose says that if this continues, his barrier will shatter into pieces. We still see Siwoon in a night cloak. His Great Nose cannot determine the exact location where he is, but he estimates roughly, so he releases a fireball right at his side. Siwoon asks where he is hiding and says, instead of being a coward, it's time for him to show up. The barrier did not manage to stop the blow, it only managed to protect. but now it is completely destroyed. Siwoon looks terribly frightened, yet still does not stop interrogating. Where are you hiding? Siwoon then raises the crossbow for another shot. He begins to read a spell but does not finish reading. A throwing knife hits him right in the forehead and tears flow from his eyes. His last words were an attempt to pronounce the spell with all his might. The spell while the attack cut off his head. He says, if someone sees the fire and follows it, it will turn into trouble, so you'd better clean out this place as quickly as possible and disappear. He decides to start with Big Nose's chest, throws almost everything that comes to hand into the subspace and, as if on purpose, also knocks out an additional healing item. He gets an escrow necklace. It turns out he is a mage from the Escrow Magic Society, which caused the confusion with the name, but he immediately brushes it off, saying it's just junk without any properties, and advises him to just set all this aside for now. While he sorts through the things, one of them suddenly sharply catches his attention. It is a circle stone. It allows engraving a circle around the heart and using mana. As soon as he uses it, he will be able to learn the magic of this circle, and of course, he really wants to find out if he can become a mage. Now he remembers why the one who was fleeing whispered, saying that if he had time he would definitely have used this thing. And it is also said that the wound responds. He feels sorry, but he will use it to his advantage and that guy. Instead, he was ordered to just put the rest in the inventory and examine it in a safe place. He goes deeper and deeper into the forest and eventually comes out on top of a hill, repeating that he needs to find a place where he can use the round stone. A few steps away, he notices houses and approaches them, murmuring that it looks simply wonderful here. Inside, a prompt flashes, "Are you sure you want to use the round stone?" And he says that it, of course, warns, as soon as he uses it, he will have to remain motionless for 3 hours. He will not be able to perform other actions or use items. And during the formation of the circle, he will feel a slight pain. He immediately feels a terrible pain in his chest and he restrains it. He sees the screens he wanted and spends the next 3 hours in unbearable pain. We see him spit on the floor and say that it was supposed to be a small pain, but he was sure this was already over. Martial arts, that's easy, but magic, not at all. But as soon as he opens the status window, a picture appears before his eyes. Now he has 2 jobs at once, plus a mono state. He says that if these 2 died, then survival should be, at least that much. It comes out to 45 out of 100, because someone named Nam Sagwang kills almost everyone on the list. Fortunately, the picture immediately jumps into a flashback a few hours earlier. A man is sitting at the top of a tree and watching others. Casting an eye on his prey, he observes how a boy stumbles over a stone. The boy spins in place and waves off, as if he just wants to get into the top 90. I see Sagwang raise his hand up, and the man involuntarily begs for his life. Then he reaches out his hand to his face, and the air seems to thicken with tension. He sticks out his head like a pimple and says, "Thanks to this, all participants will find out." Since he didn't even plan to rob him, he explains, he just wants them to know his name, and of course, it's Sagwang. It's already the 3rd day, and he still receives messages. He pretends to be worried and says he hopes he definitely won't run into Sagwang. Maybe he'll be lucky enough to break into the top 10. Before the start, a reward was announced for those who reach this ranking, so he wants to know exactly what it is. He assumes it's about money and items, and this might give a chance to use the skills and items he acquired here in the real world. And he sighs, saying that there is a killer here who. It's crazy outside, and he's already ahead of events. He needs to finish everything quickly and move on. He clearly feels the power inside and thinks that this is exactly mana. He says that yesterday during the robbery, he also came across a magic book. And it's called the Magic Book of the Wind Sphere. It creates a sphere of wind, so the number of spheres he can deploy increases with the user's power. He says he knew this and asks whether. Yes, the book just disappears. He asks again if that's all and says that now it forces him to learn magic directly in his head. Magic, he stretches out his hand and creates an air bubble, gathering mana on his palm. The palm, and we see 4 balls emerging from it. He asks if that's really all because they don't look like mine. There are many of them. He raises his hand as if to shoo them away. Behind him there was a crash. The collision with the wall ended in an explosion. He says it's much more powerful than it seems. This will definitely come in handy. But he wonders why he suddenly became so exhausted and says it's probably because he used magic. Over time, a limited zone grew on his map and the grid kept shrinking relentlessly. He decided to farm, staying right on the edge of this zone. His chances of encountering another player sharply decreased. Half were already eliminated, so he needs to rush farming before the limited zone shrinks further. Because it's the same old man and he hasn't even moved from his place, and I'm still just watching him walk along the path. And then he wonders, on the floor only loot boxes and blood. He hears footsteps behind and immediately chokes with panic. There where the sound rang out and the door explodes. Wounded, so there are probably powerful substances there since they managed to survive. For now maybe he still has time to kill them. They are weakened and they definitely have good items. Fortunately, he disappeared so quickly, otherwise he would have been killed. Seo-woon watched from afar and thanked him for acting wisely. He says he will farm quickly and head to the outskirts of the Forbidden Zone. Then we hear an old man seen earlier. He says he is quite skilled. Seo-woon realizes he has let his guard down. The man says there is no need to be afraid, he just wants to ask a few questions. He probably has a lot on his mind. Seo-woon asks who he is and he replies that he probably wouldn't even understand if told. They all lived different lives. Seo-woon says that he really is different from everyone he has seen so far. Yes, and the old man asks if he has ever played such a game before. Seo-woon asks what he means by game. The old man says he has been watching him for a long time. He quickly adapted and is confident that he already knows this is not real. Seo-woon is surprised. How long has he been observing and how come he hasn't noticed him until now? He says that he was brought here for the first time, but in the world he came from, he already played a similar game. The elderly man responds that this is quite interesting, and Seo-woon replies, by his appearance, it is clear he is definitely not from this world. The old man mumbles that it seems to be getting dark already, and Seo-woon adds, this is already the third day. The old man asks if the moon in his world is as big as here, saying that Rana says he didn't even notice. He sighs about how huge it was but tells the old man, here it is too big. The old man replies the same. Then he asks Seo-woon to explain that game. Seo-woon asks if he is sure it is worth doing it right here because in this place he can easily be ambushed. The old man says that the conversation will probably drag on for a long time, so it is better for them to go somewhere else. And Rana raises his eyebrows. Where did he get the idea that he won't kill him? The old man grabs him and presses stubbornly. He is sure he knows this well. But if he doesn't want to become a target, he must not make a sound. When he jumps from tree to tree, even having, say, an injury, he moves lightly and very quickly. So fast that the cheeks flutter in the wind. Rana says that then he did not imagine what consequences their meeting would bring. That night everything happened in another place. The old man, explaining a little, says that his world seems too magical, and Seo-woon adds, he is not very good at describing it, but there a highly developed civilization prevails. The old man replies that this explains how he managed to adapt to this place so quickly, and Seo-woon meanwhile wonders how long he has been watching him. The old man says he has been beside him since they were dropped here, and Seo-woon is amazed. Could it be that now he reads his thoughts? The old man says he intended to enjoy these 100 days of fresh mountain air, but he was touched by what exactly he is doing. He spoke out of simple interest to find out why they were brought here and does not intend to harm him, so he does not need to be careful. Seo-woon says he has no idea, and the old man replies, in his world there is something similar. Seo-woon says that is also just. It is a game just for fun and no one really dies. Therefore, when it comes to the motives of those supernatural beings who can kidnap people from another world, they are impossible to understand. So that he would know, the old man says he sees and sees. Seo-woon continues and says he is sure this game will become a great opportunity for someone. The old man asks what he means, and Seo-woon replies, he already knows this. Dying here is not the same as dying for real, so when he dies, he will be given a rank and a reward, and Seo-woon thinks that these rewards are things they will receive right here. The old man clarifies if he means what is written on his body, and Seo-woon says, no, not only that, but also the skills and martial arts he taught him. Of course, he has no proof yet. The old man says that magic is really interesting and doubts if this is a real chance, and Seo-woon replies that he is sure he will not need it, but for people who are going through great difficulties, these abilities could change their lives. The old man asks what makes him think that there are no difficulties in his life, and Seo-woon says, he looks like a martial arts master, so he probably has followers in his world, but he won't manage that in his world he is good for nothing. So this will be a great opportunity for those who face difficulties. The old man laughs loudly, says that the truth speaks interesting things, and suddenly as if some wound orders him to be silent. Then the old man asks what he is constantly doing, touching the air, and says as if the wound suggests he doesn't know how to turn on the map. He told him tips and tricks useful in his world, and in return listened to stories about him and about sorrow. He arrived quite quickly. The old man lightly tapped the ground so. He says that it is already morning, and it seems to him he has spent too much of his time, just for example, wounding the wound on the floor. Seo-woon says no, because probably staying with him is the best way to feel safe, and adds that he enjoyed listening to his stories. And the old man says that he asked him too much about the game, so now he is thinking about how to repay him somehow. Seo-woon asks to teach him a few martial arts techniques because he really wants to survive until the end, and for this, he needs the help of this person. Seo-woon asks what exactly is meant, and the old man replies, "It is about death," so he clarifies what kind it will be. The old man says, "If you want success outside traditional paths, you will have to pay a high price." They ask if he is ready for this. Seo-woon says he doesn't want to sound broken. This is a recording, but people do not die here. The old man understands everything. He is right and says A. If so, then one can try that method. The wound asks if it will succeed. The old man insists that it is worth at least trying, and Seo-woon asks what he should do. The old man says that first he needs to check how much internal energy he has, and places his palm on his head. And then he marvels at his own inner energy. He says that it is even less than his dog's and asks why he is so weak. Say the word. He says he told him, in his world there are no martial arts and internal energy. The old man tells him to assume the lotus pose, and we see he is still holding his head with his palm as if it were a basketball. He says he will feel pain like death and will not be able to move. Seo-woon asks what he should do, because if he doesn't make it in time, he will die. When Seo-woon begins to pass on his ki, he says that all sensations have sharpened. The wind on the skin feels like sharp blades, even breathing hurts. They laced him with fentanyl. He hears ants crawling on the grass. The tumor ends soon. He is seized by a very sharp pain. When exactly does this begin? Raising the energy through his danchin to the upper level, he shouted, and an energy beam burst forth from his mouth and eyes. He is overwhelmed by the thought, this is how he will die. From fear, he nervously begins to sweat. But he immediately suppresses the vomiting, at least for a moment. And even before releasing it all, the old man says, seeing how he endured it, it is clear his body is in order and he has innate talents. As soon as he adjusts the flow of his ki, his body will feel different than before, Seo-woon clarifies. So what should he do? And the old man says he has already explained. He wants to become strong as soon as possible. Seo-woon replies, yes, and continues to listen. The old man adds, he slightly pushed his soul aside and created a gate of inspiration in this space. People are born to absorb the ki of the world only through breathing, Seo-woon says. But now he has another gate that allows absorbing special energy not only through breathing. So what exactly has changed? The old man answers, people consist of mind, body, and soul, which are held together by the ki of life. He asks to guess what will happen to the ki of life when someone dies. Seo-woon says the ki should disappear, but the old man replies, that is not so. Then he gives a simple, interesting example from life, a drop of water on a leaf. And when it begins to fall from it, the old man explains that it does not disappear, it disperses. When water touches the earth, it spreads out. The old man says that the scattered life ki is absorbed by nature, thus the circle of life turns. But there are people who call this simple logical cycle a waste. They go further and even kill to take someone else's life ki. However, those who walk this path constantly crack at the seams. Eventually, the harmony of yin and yang breaks down and they either lose martial arts or die. The mind technique he passed on to him allows absorbing scattered life keys as others do to build up internal energy. Seo-woon asks if he just doomed him to inevitable death, and the old man replies, no, he is a little different. Unlike others who rebuilt veins to make gates, he used the soul Seo-woon and he has no internal energy at all, like a blank sheet. So he adjusted the veins to harmoniously absorb the life ki, and now it is clear why he gave him the forbidden mind technique in Jangyun. Seo-woon says that it is probably all because of the game settings, and the old man adds, he likes how quickly he grasps everything. Yesterday he caught this feeling, where people die, the life ki remains with them. The most vulnerable side of this mental technique success comes only at the cost of killing, but here this trap does not exist. To reach the end and not break, he has to remove others, and in 100 days he will rise to a fairly high level. The old man says it is time for them to part and that it would be nice to see him again. Tell him, the wound commands him, to wait. Too late, but even after everything he did for him, he wants at least to know his name. The old man says his name is Zhang Daqian. Everyone calls him Deep Valley. He is kind, and the spirit technique he taught is called white combat bodybuilding. The wounded man leans and says he will never forget this. The old man replies, "Get used to breathing deeply. If he continues to accumulate internal energy through his dantian, it will gradually make him stronger." Then he unfolds the map as he was taught and nods. It is very convenient. And he will see him again as soon as the opportunity arises. Say that the wound speaks so. He says that he disappeared very quickly as was to be expected from him. And if he could use the same Quine Gong movement techniques just as skillfully, he could also move without unnecessary effort. He decides to return to the outskirts exactly there, as he had planned. He was instantly caught right in the center, but the way back took half a day. We see him in the bushes near the lit house. He says it is the same as last time. Either the house is empty, or it's some noob who doesn't care. He has no idea how to turn off the light, but he still goes in there. Takes steps deeper, looks around, cleans every corner with his gaze, and then slowly begins to search the house. Above the light fades and he, as if he really was right, pulls. Time to gather some things. Nonsense, there's only trash here. It turns out he came for nothing. It was just a small healing scroll, and some idiot. Turkey, he yawns and says he hasn't slept at all because he yapped. He was with the elder all night and now has to go to sleep too tired. After that, his voice wakes up. The man says the house looks like it's not empty. Suppose the wound can say that the guy is right outside now, and I can't believe he was so defenseless, and now he's standing by the door. When the door finally opens, the man enters and says he can finally. Imagine the wound pulls the trigger and releases a shot right at the man. The man immediately cuts the flying bullet with a sword and throws a remark. Kaya one can't believe she's fighting a martial arts master and snaps. It annoys her. He reaches into the subspace and pulls out throwing knives, using the black star technique. The man deflects one of them with his hand and calls him a coward for hiding his weapon. Then Saevun approaches closely and grabs him by the side of the head. Then he pushes the weapon away from himself and says that he dreamed a pleasant dream until someone woke him up. He raised the crossbow bolt into the air. The man begs him, swears that he will do anything and give everything needed, because he cannot die here, he has suffered too much. But the wound pierced his forehead straight through. In the murder record, an entry appears and we learn the man's name was Orang. He died from an arrow. And Saevun mutters that he also will not die here. He says that this is exactly what Dokian was talking about. Wrapping it around his hand, he adds, "This is exactly the key to life." Then he is covered by a sudden rush of warmth like when his body is. The power begins to overflow him, and he stubbornly declares that this must be internal energy. Although he absorbed only the life key of one person, the body became lighter and significantly stronger. And we see his internal energy is now measured by an indicator. He wonders if this is level 20. Now 20 because of that guy's energy. He told Daki and gave him something incredible, which means he shouldn't collect the life key only by killings. He needs to look for other ways. He estimates how many people are alive now. He says in surprise that he doesn't understand how this could have happened, since they were only on the 5th day. Then he shifts his gaze to this live and says that someone just died, and we see it was Sagwang who killed a man named Carl. Sagwang insists that he couldn't understand. This dude is strong because he approached him himself, and now his hands are dirty as if from nothing. He says he has already killed many and doesn't know when this will finally end. He opens the player counter and sees 23 players remain. He moves on but still manages to notice the name Seoan. Says he has seen this bastard's name before. Seoan says that Sagwang has the most kills, so he should avoid him at all costs. He barely defeated a weak opponent and he is still far from Sagwang's level. He insists that he needs to finish farming before the zone shrinks. From the chest he just got, the only useful thing is the refined troll's potion. The rest is junk. If there had been some elixir or something truly valuable, he wouldn't have died so easily. After this, he decided to hide and hold out until there were fewer players. In a week, we will see the werewolf wandering through the forest. He returns and growls at him. Before the crossbow shot killed him, Sivan says he realized how lucky he was at the start of the game. He couldn't loot much because he was hiding all the time, and the equipment he had was broken, but at least he managed to be in the forest near the borders, so he didn't run into many enemies. But he was really tired of dried meat because it was already the 12th day in a row. He approaches the edge of the storm and stretches his hand out. He had no idea he could even move there, and for a whole week, the kill log recorded only Sagwang's kills. And it seems that everyone else is hiding and doesn't dare to take risks. He noticed that a large cloud of dust rose in the very center of the zone and says, "There seems to be a fight going on there." Sagwang, gasping, asks who they even are. They tell him everyone gathered with one goal: to take him out, and there is almost no chance. His path is to win in order to die quietly. Sagwang asks if it is true that they came together only to destroy Wan. One boy, he thinks he should be grateful. They took the trouble off him, he didn't have to search himself. Take them one by one because they are ready to kill. As for him, he is sure they are just as ready to meet the same fate, and he will make them. He realizes what this means and grabs one of that boy's heads. He squeezes it, pressing as if a pimple, and declares that he has already gotten rid of one, smearing his face with blood. He did so and then fiercely says that he will get another. As we see, it was not just one killed. He immediately dealt with a whole group, finishing off 3 more. And the murder log demonstrated this well. Sagwang almost certainly will win the game unless something unexpected happens. The number of players kept falling again and again, and Seowon insists that this is madness. 9 kills at once look absurd, and he admits that it might be cheating. Of course it's a joke, but Sagwang says those guys were nothing. The stench of blood is disgusting. They must die without resistance, and he doesn't understand why they are screaming when he is about to leave. He walks and says that he needs to find a place where he can wash. He says that this is Elizabeth's team and that everything is arranged as escrow. He even swears by his own name he will avenge Elizabeth. He moved on and insists that if he endures a little longer, he will be in the top 10. But after the chaos he saw earlier, if he wants to survive against a raid boss like Sagwang, he needs really good items. By morning, this estate will most likely be outside the safe zone. He says that this is probably the last place where you can still farm properly. Looking around, he touches one of the knight statues. It says he needs 110 strength. He brushes it off, saying he lacks strength and it will only weigh him down. And since he has only 30, he mutters that this is just incredibly unlucky. He assures something else will definitely happen, and notices a detail he cannot take his eyes off. This is an elixir that enhances his internal energy, duration 3 hours, so he is asked if he wants to use it right now. Seowon says that if he drinks it, he is not sure if he can really restore internal energy without absorbing the key of life, and this estate seems to him a storage for valuable things. Next, he picks up the martial art Invincible Fist and cannot believe it. Along with it, he also found a manual. Just like with the skill Circle Stone, he will have to sit for about 3 hours to absorb the elixir. When he takes a step, he notices the sound is different and he freezes in thought, trying to understand what exactly is happening. When he looks more closely, a cellar appears before him and throws out. Inside, there is probably something. He is still fleeing from the fire, so he will manage to get to the waiting hall. He glanced into the waiting hall and there was escrow. Escrow states his survival after the explosion is not pure luck because he killed all those people and survived. We see that he is not talking to a stranger, but specifically to Sagwang, who asks what he is even talking about. If he just falls silent, he will become nobody. But when he has time to sow nonsense, it is better to fight than to waste that time. Escrow says that he wants to see how long he can continue his work. He has such a mouth, and Sagwang says he can say the same to him. Say that the wound cannot believe. Sagwang, who arranged the massacre, is just a child. Escrow raises his staff above his head and declares that he is a master of spells and that he has his own style of lightning. He strikes right at the place where Sagwang stands. Sagwang retreats. Avoiding the blow Escrow throws, he wants to see how long he can dodge and that they need to meet face to face just like he did against Elizabeth. Sagwang reaches aside from another attack and replies that this is no longer just talk. He hasn't even seen this in Zhang Yuan, and some of his moves give him goosebumps. He charges a spirit bomb and insists that it is with it that he will destroy him. He throws it and it breaks into several lightning strikes, which he calls a lightning storm. Sagwang realizes everything will end badly. He begins to dodge, maneuvering between attacks, slowly closing the distance between him and Escrow. Then he suddenly rises from the ground and dodges the last storm surge. He and Escrow says that this is not enough to break his barrier. He swings the stick forward with a swing and cuts Sagwang in half. And Escrow says that he really did not expect this. Seowon suggests this is also Escrow's magic and throws, this is madness. Because besides almost killing Sagwang, he can also change the weather and he is very strong. Escrow says he cannot find Sagwang, and it looks like he ran far ahead. He steps back and starts shouting Sagwang's name, a curse that will catch and kill him. Somewhere in the forest, Sagwang is suffocating from gas. He stated that this time maybe he outplayed him, but next time he will not let him get away unscathed and he will write his death himself. For now, Sagwang needs to rest and recover. Seo-woon says that Escrow 1 looked around for Sagwang, whom he eventually caught up with and saw, but he went down and disappeared because he was nowhere to be seen. But thanks to Escrow 1's cloak, Sagwang did not notice him and Seo-woon survived. Seo-woon says that after their battle, they probably will not return here for some time. And he wonders if something really important is hiding there or if it is a dungeon with hidden treasure. He unlocks it and says that it seems this path stretches quite far. He says that for now he wants to go inside. It seems no one has been here yet. When he starts to descend, he mumbles that it was a great idea to take a lantern from the house he searched yesterday. He looks around and sees a pile of food. He says it turns out it was a food vendor. There really aren't many places like this for cultivation, so he can't believe it all turned into a complete failure. His stomach growled and he honestly sighed. He had complained before he eats only dried meat. After an hour he comes to again and just nods, saying it was very good. If he had at least some white rice that would be ideal, but it's not bad as it is, so it's time to start taking the elixir. He also adds that he has a martial arts manual, and we learn how the invincible fist was created. It was invented by a man named Manpeza. Developed in his later years and relying on life experience in martial arts, he put his heart and soul into it to create an invincible style. But with a record of 1,429 fights and 1,429 losses, he became an object of ridicule and the art was lost due to lack of students. Seo-woon says that he actually learned some nonsense and maybe that's still better than learning nothing. He decides not to think about it and first just drinks the elixir. He hesitated for a moment because of the pain from activating the ring stone, but remembering to become stronger, he still swallowed it without any prolongations. While his dantian fills with internal energy, what he absorbed earlier doesn't even come close. He says he suddenly sweats heavily, his movements have become slow, and that he really won't be able to move for 3 hours. After 3 hours, he is already thinking, could it finally be over? Because even sitting still for 3 hours, that alone brings fatigue. All week he hid in the forest and nurtured pride. During the clash between those two giants, he survived unnoticed. Now he decides to get a proper sleep. He only says that it is definitely near the storm and opens the player counter. Rana asks how exactly he did that. He answers, definitely did not resort to any pointless training methods just. And here there is no risk, and if not for that, he generally does not understand why people do all this. He is glad to be in the top 10, but this path leaves a bitter aftertaste. The zone begins to shrink around him, so he says it's time to move. He won't die just because he ends up in the restricted zone. Having come this far once, it means he has a chance. So he needs to quickly roll back from it, and as soon as he starts running, he stubbornly declares that he won't let himself be caught here. He wants to stick to the strategy that has kept him all this time, and says that for a person without skills, this is the best way to rise even higher. He returns and sees a fireball crashes right into the spot where he stood and explodes on the spot. He miraculously manages to escape unharmed, and he has no idea where it came from. On cue, we see him from the point where the attack came from, and it turns out that thing destroyed. Escrow says he sent someone with his detection spell, so he decided it was Sagwang, but it turned out to be a new face. Seovun claims he got carried away, accelerating with the help of inner energy, and eventually crashed right into this guy, and he turned out to be a real fool. Escrow asks him if he knows where Sagwang is, and immediately warns, if he doesn't listen, he will have to kill him right here. Escrow says he will only let him go alive when he names where Sagwang is. If he doesn't know, he will be killed, and there will be no choice, because letting him go without that will be a problem. Suppose the wound replies that they literally just met, so he doubts, how would he know all these things? He leaves to arrange a surprise attack and Escrow throws. He was just pretending to be from the same edge, and if he doesn't recognize him, he will have to die. SHWNG touches his barrier, and when Sagwang says he has fully recovered but understands, he probably lacks mana. Seovun wonders where he came from. He never felt how he arrived. Sagwang pulls his fist back and says he will finish it with it. This, and he really manages to break through the barrier and Escrow. And Sagwang asks if he has ever heard of enhanced energy. Hand energy is a martial art from that category which is incredibly rare, so almost no one possesses it. He mastered it and never thought he would have to use it in this world. And you are the first to whom he showed it, so consider yourself honored. He calls him Archmage, and as soon as we see his hand in Escrow's throat, he pulls it out. Blood splashes everywhere. Sagwang says that now he knows, he will no longer have to recite those annoying spells, and for a person like him, getting into the top 5 was inevitable, so sooner or later they would run into each other anyway, and his meeting with him will be the greatest regret. Saevun says that maybe he is lucky. Sagwang came here, and while they were distracted, he will quickly retreat from here. Sagwang says he will kill him now, and Siwon looks in amazement at what he sees, while Sagwang pushes his whole hand through it. He was repeatedly stabbed in the chest with a homemade knife as if in prison, since escrow concerns. Saevun says he saw the supposedly invincible archmage die. To be completely destroyed, yes, and it was not about fear of Sagwen. If anyone had any sympathy for us, it was only a thought that preceded everything else. He imagined how much stronger he would become if he absorbed their life key, and just from this thought he began to sweat. Sagwang asks where his yesterday's audacity went, if he has last words before death, and declares, "Forgot," and then he can no longer speak. Sagwang begins to hear his words in his head. After all, Elizabeth, whom he killed, was his favorite student, so he asks how he is now speaking with him. And escrow says that when she was expelled from the academy and Cranesec did not recognize her, it was simply because she was a woman, and he deeply regretted not stopping her then. Sagwang says he does not remember meeting a woman, probably she just looked like a man. Escrow laughs, but it rather sounds like the splashing of blood, and he says that now he can finally shut that dirty mouth. Let's say the wound says that this guy summoned a whole meteorite. When it starts to fly towards the two of them, Sagwang asks how he managed to cast a spell if he cannot speak. To this escrow replies, because this is how it is supposed to work. Using their mana and life essence as payment, this is called Armageddon. Sagwang begins to turn back and flee from all this, calling it madness and claiming that the wound is the same. Earlier escrow said that it was nice to see Elizabeth then, and that he wants to see her again. And Armageddon strikes the ground, a giant explosion raises dust and flames, as if the world itself cracked. He says that if this spell had been cast by someone else, only one person could have done it. Suppose the wound survived but was too injured. He insists that he should have run away from there, not waited, because he himself craved the key to life. He says he cannot die so senselessly, so he directed a bunch of healing scrolls straight at himself. And at this very moment, he begins tearing them one by one. He sighs and says he barely got out. If not for that elixir, he would never have been able to escape. And it still hurts incredibly badly even after he has already healed. One scroll was definitely not enough. When he tears another handful, he says that he can finally catch his breath a little. It turned out he spent all the accumulated scrolls and says that more need to be obtained. Seeing that escrow is finally dead, he says, it's a pity he couldn't witness this. The sphere is the key to life, but you can't do anything about it. And he wonders why Sagwin does not appear in the death log, or if he is even still alive. On cue, a weak Sagwing sounds as if asking for help. He says he definitely heard the sound from here and exactly when. Sagwing curled up into a ball and said, if he manages to activate this scroll, he will not die in such a bad situation. Suppose the wound says that avoiding the meteor aimed at him would be difficult, and when all limbs are unusable, he cannot use the healing scroll. Sagwang asks him to tear it for him, and Saewon replies that he knows, he is Sagwang. Then Saewon says he was always amazed at what equipment he had to become so strong every time his name appeared on the kill list. He was sure he would definitely win this game, so it's funny to see him in such a state. Sagwang says, if he helps even once, he will make him the winner, and it's easy, because he won't be able to win alone by killing him. If he can get Sagwang's items and the key of life, he will become the boss of this game. He raises the blade up and Sagwang screams. No, even if he kills him, he doesn't know how many strong players are here. He doesn't even have that many items, and he hasn't learned martial arts here. Suwon says that at least he must know the name of the one who is killing him, and it is Jin Suwon. Sagwang replies this time he might not survive. Shout his name before Saewon manages to stab the knife right into his head. Name the size of the wound and ask why he looks like a child, that way you will make him feel guilty. Something begins to burst out of him so fast that it envelops his entire body. He insists that Sagwang is almost a human elixir because a huge surge of internal energy boils inside him. Moreover, several people are still alive, so this really exists. And they see Saewon really managed to kill Saegya. Now that the tiger is dead, the foxes will run wild. Let's say the wound insists that with such energy, he could handle anyone. Pray saying if he had so much internal energy from the very beginning, then he would have to be a completely crazy man, and there is no reason. Because of this, he will not farm, and if he doesn't find anything good, his mood will be spoiled. Just as he wanted, he receives the Kaiser's ring, which sharply increases agility, the Driminger ring for strength, the Halen ring for endurance, and the Takar ring for magic resistance, and he is given 2 of such rings. Seo-woon says that this scoundrel only farmed rare items, and I think he pretended all along that he had no extra equipment. Now everything went awry, and now he is definitely capable of winning. Besides the rings, there were various books on martial arts, but he couldn't start with them immediately, each required prior skills. Then he suddenly feels something and asks to wait a minute. It seemed to him that this happened only because of sensing someone's approach, as if he caught someone's presence. The bullet ricocheted and returned, hitting him in the back, and the flames immediately began to engulf his body. The boy says that he cannot relax just because he is now farming. Encountering this ambush, he looked as if he was just lucky he managed to kill Sagwang. The wounded man, who of course was not scared by the attack, asks who he is, and the guys stand confused why his fire spell did not work. Seo-woon explains everything passed by because he has 90 magic resistance. He meets the boy's gaze. The boy orders him to step back and immediately asks what he intends to do. If he takes another step, the boy will strike him with a stronger spell. So the boy sets the direction and aims one beam straight ahead. The man directs the explosion right into Seo-woon's chest, and we see again how it starts to spread around. Then he sharply clenches his fist and pulls his hand back. He shows the first technique, piercing fist, and strikes the man in the stomach, breaking his stick and sending a shockwave down his back. Seo-woon says he was told that this martial art always lost, so he expected nothing. But it turns out his strength depends on how much internal energy you have. Love, the boy starts coughing and turns around. He simply dies on the spot. Now there are 7 left, and this boy was named Zigger. Seo-woon says that now, since his resistance to magic has increased, ordinary magic will no longer harm him. Apparently, after the death of Sagwang, everyone who was hiding was killed. When he starts wildly rushing through the entire forest, he claims he is already at the level to at least imitate Dakian's movements and adds, with him, he can really win. He hears someone nearby shouting, "Stop hiding and come out to meet us." Seo-woon does not believe his ears. Could this guy really be pushing the silence so loudly in the middle of the night? And the other replies that Zihark was. He says that he was quite a strong mage, and if the fighter is not scared, let them just fight like men. As if joking, he replies, "I'm just a scared kid. Are you really afraid of me?" And we find out his name, Stanko. He barely deflects her. It is clear that this is an arrow shot with ill intent. Stanko claims that they tried to set him up in a girlish way, so they need to fight like men. Bro, like an echo, repeats the variants of his lines. Let's imagine, the wound says, it was an arrow, and immediately asks who inflicted it. When I think of an arrow, one person involuntarily comes to mind, Zurachana. Zurachana asks if he knows who he is, and Stanko replies, as if it's obvious. Because he is the legendary mercenary nicknamed the Divine Archer, well known in the guild. After all, he also wants to win this, so they should unite and eliminate. I turn back to Stanko. He says I did the right thing by introducing myself and adds, he himself works in the guild. He is too famous and seems not to regret it. Zurachana just nods, all right. Stanko continues, his reputation is very big, but the head seems empty. Zurachana begins to count and voices the assumption that maybe she was wrong about the time. As Stanko says, the archer must make a mistake and shorten the distance himself. He raises his gaze and sees Stanko throwing the sword back, telling him to die and give up his belongings. When he starts swinging down with all his might, he gets a CL. The arrow pierces his skull and flies into the ground. It turns out Zurachana shot an arrow into the air, and it was that one he was counting. He grumbles that he would never cooperate with an insect like him. Even a dog passing by would pee on him. He needs to find out where that scoundrel Seo-woon is, and he has already wasted a lot of time. Seo-woon approaches the treasure chest and says that when only 6 remain, the key to each one's life is too valuable. He seems to look him in the eyes right where he stands. Seo-woon uses detection magic and says that maybe he is not just a skilled archer but has some ability he himself does not suspect. He relaxed because he was thinking about life. But instead Zurachana simply says that he was a vile scoundrel. There is no point in involving him. As soon as he leaves, it turns out he didn't even notice Seo-woon. Secondly, Seo-woon says that it seems to him, the zone is shrinking faster. Only 6 survivors remain, another 87 days, and probably the counter is just adjusting to the number of those left. He wakes up and sees he is actually in the field. He says that if he fights, If someone like that appears here, he will immediately grab the attention of everyone nearby. But he manages to dash to the side and land far from them. He mumbles that the magic definitely hit where he was just standing. All he can do is look up in surprise and see how it happened. He notices a bunch of attacks swirling in the sky and exclaims, "Damn it." When they approach, he immediately realizes dodging is no longer possible. He says that he came to this conclusion himself, and now he will try to believe in his inner energy. He uses the invincible fist, once again striking sharply forward exactly in the direction of the attack, and completely breaks through it, destroying every projectile flying towards him, saying that now he needs to find out exactly where his enemy is. He does it easily, shrugs and says he did not expect to find him so quickly, and the other immediately asks, "Who are you?" He poured all his mana into that attack and still is surprised that he had enough time to block everything to the last. The guy squints, then freezes. When did this happen? He felt nothing. And the killer replies that he only needed to leave enough mana for detecting magic or for a barrier. Being a killer and erasing his tracks is his craft, and he is already resting in urine. The man begins to disappear, and eventually only 5 survivors remain. He asks if the killer knows him, and in response hears, of course he killed the people's enemy number 1, Sag Vang, so he could not know. And the rest of the people are clearly in panic trying to track him, losing their minds. He should not cling, let him quietly step away. He always hit the target he managed to notice. He rushes inside and Seovun too, because in a moment they will have a serious fight. In the cuts we see how after their clash blood flies in the air. Seovun actually has many small cuts all over his arm. The killer says he thought they would cut him there, but he turned out to be stronger than expected. Seovun replies that if he hadn't covered himself with inner energy, his arm would have been cut off, and adds, "This scoundrel is strong." The killer insists again. He says his death is inevitable because he never missed when killing in the dark. Seovun says that so far he has only fought with mages. He says he will kill him right now as soon as he starts to disappear. Suddenly behind his back appears something that cuts the wound, and in the next moment he discovers. But this also turns out to be only an illusion. Seovun tells him that his ability to act unnoticed is incredibly impressive. He grabs both wrists and explains, at his level he can track movements just by feeling the energy. A strange pose. The killer calls him a coward for attacking from behind, although this is essentially his trick. Seovun replies that he was the one trying to kill him, and then adds, it's his fault because he was caught. Then he squeezes the killer's wrists and he chokes with a scream from unbearable pain. The killer says that he himself cannot handle everyone and suggests at least to unite, but the wounded one refuses. When he lowers his hands and throws his leg up, this guy's spine breaks in half. A brutal death blow now strikes to the back sound on a whole new level. 4 remain. We learn that his name was Daemaren. Seovun absorbed both their life keys and picked up the healing scrolls that fell. Due to the crazy noise they made, he wanted to quickly farm and get out of there before becoming a target for a third party. Then he pulls a book from Daemeren's belongings and immediately states that it does not suit him at all. Seovun says fortunately he did not know how to use internal energy. If he had learned and mastered it skillfully, killing him would have been much harder. Seovun says fortunately he did not know how to use internal energy. If he had learned and mastered it skillfully, killing him would have been much harder. The other one had a grimoire called Eyes of Carmen, a highest level detection spell that pierces any concealment, but the magic circle there is too small, impossible to learn. Seovun concluded that probably that is why he saw through the cloak of concealment. And behind him an attack is already flying. It rushes past him and cuts his cheek. Seovun freezes and looks at the arrow on the floor. It was the same guy just now, and now the magic begins to manifest rapidly. Seovun says he has never seen anything like this before and does not know who it is. In any case, he cannot run, so he will focus on his summon inner energy and strike once more with the invincible fist to overcome this, sending a shockwave upward through the formed glacier. Seovun says that since 2 attacks came simultaneously, it must be a double team. Then a man appears behind him and says that he is strong enough. Well, that's Armstrong from Fullmetal Alchemist. It turns out only 4 of them remain, the King Cruzens. Shenturk, the right hand of the Demon King, the very one we saw during the clash with Escrow and Hyern, and nearby the divine archer Zorachin. And finally, the ordinary guy Siwoon, who will soon understand what to do next. Siwoon is told that his luck has really run out here. Siwoon replies he was just so close to victory and got caught up with the timers. The best way to break a team is to create circumstances where they start betraying each other. He needs to find out what relationships they have, but he clearly has never seen this before. Chiron tells Shenturk that he is glad to see him here. Shenturk asks why the black mage is talking to the king. Chiron laughs and orders him to explain. They politely justify themselves, saying status has nothing to do with it. It's just more profitable to unite and get better rewards. And Seiyavun thinks, it turns out they might not have done this intentionally. But Shenturk of course insists, first they need to get rid of Seiyavun's annoying presence. And Chiron adds that for him, it's a matter of moments. A golden aura begins to shine and blinds Seiyavun. He looks up. Above him appears a miniature sun. Chiron throws out, now he has nowhere to hide, and Shenturk adds he is smarter than they thought before. Seiyavun says he had no idea about such a method, and since the cloak hides only in darkness, he did not calculate this loophole. Chiron says he wants to thank Sogwen. He released that annoying escrow for him. He cannot say it directly, but such is the rule of this land. Now it is his turn to die in the name of the Demon King. Then he begins to summon a purple whirlwind with his left hand, calling it the Blade of Chaos. Most mages are weak at close range, so if he shortens the distance, they will be cramped and it will be hard for them to cast spells. In any case, he needs to force close combat. When he rushes forward, Chiron calls him an ignoramus and declares, all he has left is to simply die as he is. Attacks fly one after another, and they mockingly note, the wounded one does not even try to dodge. He rushes through the gale, stubbornly repeating that the body must be enveloped with as much internal energy as possible to reduce damage to break through at any cost. But even the cloak tears so madly that it can no longer be used until it is repaired. Seiyavun says that the internal energy that concealed his body is disintegrating, and now even his cloak is disappearing. Chiron declares this blow will tear him to pieces and not a single trace will remain. Then Seiyavun takes up his invincible fist again. Breaking free from the bloody blade of chaos, he clenched his fist and dashed forward. Bro is smeared with his own blood. Chiron calls American and says that he has no chance to win, so he should surrender. When he casts another spell, Dead Man's Chaos, suddenly hands burst out of the ground and fly straight towards Sivun. Seiyavun says that compared to all the mages he has fought before, this guy is on a completely different level. He clasps his hands and strikes the shadow clone, and they begin to take the blows instead of him. Chiron says he thought he can strike several times in a row, and he can also cast shadow clone magic, and that really surprises. Seiyavun insists that this is his victory. Chiron begins to stutter, pronouncing the word barrier. The ability called Piercing Aura passed through Chiron's chest and hit Seiyavun. Well then, the collateral has been taken. Chiron turns around and declares that the one called king cannot be led so cowardly. Shenturk tells him there is no honor greater than victory, and he never once said he would cooperate. With him, let him thank him for getting rid of the trash, and as soon as a message appears, say it. He killed Chiron. Shenturk insists that now only the two of them remain. He tells Zurachana that he was a real thorn in their army's side, and what irony. In the end, he helped him just like that. It's too early for him to say this, and Shenturk asks what he is talking about. As we see, Seiyavun still. He is alive. He runs up with an attack and hits right in the face. Because of this, Bro begins to spin. His blows are so furious that the armor flies off almost instantly. And in the next moment, he flies straight into the rock near Zurachana. Finally got into the pair, Zurachana says he thought he had already died from Shenturk's sword, but apparently it was a shadow clone. Seiyavun orders him to stop babbling and continue fighting, not getting distracted by anything. Zurachana snorts, can't believe how impatient everyone is. This shows above all, he is busy with matters concerning Shenturk. Since Shenturk is still alive, he says that both of them are driving him crazy, and he felt it and can't believe that he personally smashed his armor, forged by the master blacksmith of his empire, and that is truly impressive. Seiyavun says that he also babbles too much and thinks, will they attack him one by one or rush together? Shenturk says that he will regret making him give all his strength. When he starts leaving an afterimage, say the word. Shenturk instantly shortens by a step and, breaking from the spot, pierces Shenturk's arm with a rapier. Shenturk retorts no one has enough speed against him. He has already been hit in the ligaments, so this arm will no longer obey, and the technique, it seems, required both. Seiyavun says that he was confused. This guy is not a power character at all, so how can he lose like this? But he worked so hard to get here, and it's already too late to die here. So he decides to trust the energy within himself. When he swings down, he breaks Shenturk's rapier with his bare hand. He raises his hand and activates the art of the Black Star. throws it back towards Shenturk and slashes his cheek with momentum. Shenturk asks how he dared to wound his face, and then the wound tears a healing scroll and instantly heals his injury. Shenturk says he doesn't believe it, he will have to fight until the very end. The end when he starts forming his blade with aura again. He says he acknowledges him, saying that he forced him to resort to the aura blade. Seivan declares that now, with his hands healed, he will finally strike back. He is about to fold his hands and a shadow clone appears, while at the same time he burns all his inner energy to gather a whole army of copies. Shenturk says that indeed he resorts to annoying tricks, but the winner is always him. Seivan replies, now he has become serious, so he needs to prepare. Zurachana watches closely and asks if any of them can die, because they need to finish this with the help of quads. He squints, yawns officially there are now only 3 of them. Seivan tells him that he is about to start and Shenturk speaks. He told him to stop talking, but he continues himself. We learn that the maximum duration of his aura blades is 2 minutes, so they need to manage within that time. And Seivan's internal energy is also almost depleted. He also needs to finish this quickly, so they both hurry. They both start running one after another. We see Seivan and his clones surround Shenturk, and as soon as Shenturk makes a strike towards his head, he dodges. Seivan pats him on the back and Turk waves his hand, calling him a vile scoundrel, and cuts the shadow clone in half. Shenturk says he doesn't feel the hits landing, so it was definitely a clone. If so, he will chop them all down without any hesitation and without searching for the real one. While he does this, he is mercilessly hit right in the face. He begins to stagger, stops halfway in his thoughts is this. Isaiah Woon asks what it feels like when a sneaky guy strikes. To understand, it is better for him to immediately stop searching for the real body. The clones he creates are capable of attacking just like the original and are no worse, so he will not be able to distinguish them. In unison, 2 of his clones climb together and start the attack, using the relentless fist that slipped from her rear petals. Now he is in the air. Realizing that he needs to go on the offensive, he wants more of him to be involved just like his teammate. I release a piercing aura and sharply swing forward, quickly striking the clones. The bewitched one looking from above says that he did not expect this. Shenturk orders him to stop standing and come help. If he helps him win, Shenturk will give him everything he wants as soon as they return. Zurachana tells him to keep the opponent in sight. Again, Shenturk activates his piercing aura and his wound is avoided. This time he deflects the attack and strikes with his palm directly on his sword. And say what the wound says, he did not expect it to be blocked. Shenturk shouts that now he has caught him. Then he pierces through and you can see blood splattering. He gradually disappears because that was only a clone. Shenturk grumbles that this nonsense is reaching absurdity. It is humiliating, he begins. Laughing, he says that he no longer cares about victory, he will simply tear him to pieces, using all his strength. Zurachana exclaims, here comes the king of madness, and Shenturk tells him, dodge this if you can. As soon as he starts releasing Hella Aura, the distance shrinks instantly, he knocks down 2 clones and pierces another one. When they all begin to dissolve, he throws out, only remains. When Sivan and his clones tear forward, he activates his peer-to-peer connection. Another C wound strikes him right in the chest and pierces through. Let's say the wound says his attack hit this time. Shenturk says that, since there is no sensitivity in his hand, he must just become a clone too, and then only the original will remain. Shenturk says he will finish it with 1 strike. And they start running towards each other to end it all together. Suppose this time Woon did not dodge Shenturk's stab, but shot a kick at the hand. Shenturk says he is quite skilled in hand-to-hand combat. I used the last charge of my aura blade to carve the shape of lightning. The Turk begins to stab Sei, a wound in the leg, and it triggers shock. Seiwoon falls back to the ground, and Shenturk quickly closes the distance. Seiwoon tries to persuade him to wait after all, only Zurachana benefits from this. He says he barely grabbed time while his skill was still active. It did not feel like a real body. As we see, Seiwoon appears immediately. Seiwoon says that if he had not exhausted him with his clones, he would have lost. Now only 2 survivors remain, and he has the prey of Shenturk and the key of life, which he can absorb. Zurachana says he did not expect him to defeat Shenturk, and he must thank him because it was really hard to deal with him. After all, because of this obsessive desire to compete, even the king had to give all his strength to defeat someone like him. He put everything into the fight with him. Therefore, he will die by his hands. For his brave fight, he will grant him the honor that he receives then when he releases the arrow and flies through the air. Seijunu says that it was a crazy amount of life keys, and although it does not compare to what he got in Saguengu, this will be enough. Huge, and he can definitely defeat Zurachana. Even more, jumping from the foot of the cliff to Zurachana. Zero-Chana says that he uses an annoying clone too. Chana also lowers her gaze and says that this time she must make sure. This time she will be able to escape. Rana shouts no even before Zero-Chana makes the shot and Seigun asks how he figured out which one was real. Maybe he says there is nothing strange about it, but in fact he just guessed. Seo-eun asks if he is serious, and Zero-Chana replies that he did well and got this far and he shows respect for his persistence, and Seigun orders to give her to the dogs. And time is already beginning to fade and it hurts. He disappears because a chest appears and we see the survival of Cloyd has ended. Tell me what is the size of the wound. He did all the work, but the prize went to someone else. But in the end he used Sagwon when he was defenseless, and Sagwon congratulates him on reaching the top 2. Because he earned the right to participate in the next game. Siwoon confirms the second game. The game immediately says, considering the kill bonuses, he earned 140 coins. Siwoon wonders what the money is for and calls up all the items he has already received. Before his eyes, every item with a real price. Now he can buy them one by one. This is an incredibly cool system. But the shadow clone costs 130, and Siwoon cannot understand why it is so expensive. It eats up almost all his coins. Moreover, he is explained, the top 5 survivors will have a chance to spin the roulette and draw a random item. Seo-eun says that of course they love their gacha games, and since he is going second, he has 2 attempts. Seo-eun encourages, let him draw either the invisibility cloak or the shadow clone. He needs to save a bunch of coins, and then this can quite possibly turn into a huge win. He flies through the shadow clone, and as soon as it is about to repeat the trick, he is already ready. And instead he gets the escrow necklace. He says that he took one of the cheapest options, and he only hinted like that to get D. And then he begins to beg any god just to help him with this. When it passes through the subspace ring, he manages to think, could it be that he was wrong again? And we see how the black star continues its path. And he decides that everything is already over even before the hit strikes the shadow clone, because there is plot armor. Saying that this is the most expensive thing he could buy and that it is almost twice as expensive as his coins, he does not look away. Then he hands over the items and states that he can spend his coins to purchase additional items. As soon as this is done, he will be automatically transferred, and he says that it is already time to start shopping. Thanks to pulling out the shadow clone, he managed to save a bunch of coins, and there were too many offers, so he could not decide for long. Waiting was unbearable. Therefore, he made a few compromises and eventually finished shopping. The voice supported him and wished him luck in the next game. When Seo-eun sees a bright light in front of him, he puts it on his finger and says that this is actually not a dream. Then he picks up the bag from the floor and states that his first game has already come to an end, and outside he can look almost the same. At least now he doesn't have to study. He looks at the ring and says he was already promised that there will be another one. In the game, he only has 30 coins left, so he has to run as fast as he can to make it there on time. This time he was very close to victory and finished second, but in the next game he will definitely take first place. Of course, his parents bought him that studio near the school so he could return to classes. At first, he was supposed to stay here, to study and prepare for returning to school. But now he has completely switched to one thing, becoming stronger thanks to the things he brought from the game. He begins to feel inner energy. He says it is empty and thinks maybe he used it all in the final battle. And since he can't kill anyone here, he will try to grow something like Daki from himself and teach it the same thing. Dakian said that accumulating inner energy through cultivation is normal, and that once he forms an energy core and focuses on it, everything should happen naturally. Maybe not as fast as absorbing life force by killing others. But if cultivation becomes a habit, he will achieve mastery without even noticing how it happened. Seo-eun asked if he could become just as strong if he trained, and Dakian just laughed in response. Maps noted that since yesterday he noticed, he has become noticeably braver, and Dakian replied that it is an idiom about not overdoing it. Otherwise, he will have to suffer for it, although sometimes it turns out that it's just an overkill. Because he might be a hidden talent and won't find out about it until he tries. He declares and says that he barely has the strength to gather even something. But come on, this is too different from the game. At this pace, it will take him years to fill it. He shouldn't waste any more time. It's better to just put things in order with the stuff he brought. He pulls out several martial arts manuals, says he would like better ones, and then he wonders whether to train it gradually, just like internal energy. He definitely won't become strong anytime soon. The manual asks if he wants to learn this, and he is embarrassedly silent. He says that now it is weaker than when he was full of internal energy, but it doesn't change the essence, it's still the same. He has it and we see the escrow necklace. He says he forgot about it and they say it is made of pure gold. He bites it and insists that it is. It seems that it really should be worth at least 10 million won. It looks like it costs only 1 coin, and if in the next game he manages to bring as many as 10 of these, he will immediately farm 100 million. Even if in the game itself it has no price, here it acquires a completely different value. He is extracting purified troll blood. He was told that this item guarantees a whole year of healthy life to whoever drinks it, but it was returned already considering the effects. It sounded like an attempt, and if he could sell this item to some rich terminally ill patient, he could demand any price. The fact that the Cloyd will survive will turn into a huge opportunity for him. He says, if you think about it, in the game he only had dried meat, and during cultivation he didn't even feel hunger. It's already time for him to eat real food. He enters an establishment called Grandma's Diner and orders. It was a set of dishes that he once considered a luxury. When he chewed that dried meat, what he wanted most was exactly this dish. He says, so much time has passed since he ate plain white rice that the dried meat almost killed him. The grandmother owner, as I suppose, asked what was wrong with him. He came here yesterday too, because if he cries, a man shouldn't have an appetite spoiled. He says it was very tasty and as always thanks her. And she asks, stop the nonsense, eat everything on the plate and ask for more if it's not enough. Seo-woon summarizes, this only confirms in the game, time flows differently than in real life. Then he thanks her again for the food, and she orders him to stop whining and come again. He is interested in when the next time will start, because he has to manage to get there. Accumulate more internal energy by that time, and one more thing he brought back. He takes out the ring of power, puts it on, and says he is curious. Will it work the same as in the game? He crouches, then pushes off the street with a jerk, flies over the houses, and says that this is. He falls back, lands, and says he hopes no one saw this. If this is made public and spread on the internet, it will be a big problem for him. He says if they do exactly the same as in the game, he wants it. At first, he will have to accumulate more internal energy before use, but in return, it will cause him a lot of trouble. The most expensive item he bought in the game, its absorption canceled my ability to play this game. He had to stretch forward for hours 3 times, and it seemed as if it was burning inside him. His eyes flash brightly, the elixir falls to the floor and he wastes part of it in vain. He came to his senses again, but his condition is very bad. Smoke stretches near his room. People said the wall was heating up. They knocked on his door, but the handle was hot, you couldn't even touch it. If it was burning so much, they probably should have called the firefighters, not the police. The old woman curses, it was hot but there was no fire, and the police advise not to go inside and suggest that the boiler is set too high. She says it's too early for that, it's too hot already. The policeman sighs, all right, and approaches to touch the door. It burns her so much that she feels uneasy. She repeats, she passed these words to him. He asks if there is someone inside because they received a message and he needs to open the door. If he is inside, he must answer, after all, they are here to help. The door opens and the wound, as if just awakened, asks who has come. They say they received a message about a possible fire. Let's say the wound from which sweat is dripping seems to hint that he is a bit hot. And also that he turned up the boiler. If it really was a fire, firefighters should already be here, not the police. The police say that during the complaint they will still have to leave and ask if an ambulance is needed. Seo-woon replies, it's just a mild cold and after rest he will feel better. The police nod up and down, all right. They are going to leave, but then the cops ask her not to call an ambulance for such things, saying it causes problems. Seo-woon trembles and replies that she was shocked. He almost died. The energy of the elixir boiled inside him like a flame, but if it weren't for his ability to keep his body under control, he wouldn't have been able to hold it back. Suddenly, he is overwhelmed by the feeling that everything is going wrong, unlike in the game. Using these things in real life is a bit risky, but it's worth it. When he raises his hand, he unleashes his invincible fist. A palm strike and a gust of air scattered the whole room, instantly breaking his chair. He says he has to sell a few things he brought back to at least buy a new chair. The next day he heads to the gym. On the street he declares that to truly polish his invincible fist, he needs physical training. He came here, but it turned out to be too crowded during the day. He has to wait until the sunset passes, and only then does he notice something. There is a whole group of high school bullies here. I hope he doesn't start a fight with them, that would be very awkward. When they pass by, one of the students is smoking. The old man tells him that smoking is not allowed here and that he himself shouldn't either, he is still young. And the student asks again, what exactly is this about, since even his parents never said anything about him smoking. The old man says if his parents hadn't done that, they wouldn't have managed to raise him at all. The hooligan asks who he is anyway, and the wound seems to suggest he has a bad feeling about this. When his body is thrown back and he flies through the table, it's impossible to believe that he will just kill the student like that. Saevun says no matter how rude he is, hitting an old man for no reason is not allowed. Some students turn back and call someone else after them. This is for Minchik, that's who they came to meet. Saevun turns around. Earlier I asked if he was looking for death. That guy starts looming over him. And Saevun says that everything turned out to be more complicated than he wanted. Here is the student covered in blood, lying on the ground, and Minchik asks if this is his doing. Saewun says that the problem started with him. He did not show respect to the elders. And he really was going to attack the old man. And if the high schoolers smoke so boldly in public, they need to be reminded that they could end up in Sierra Leone. If this is his older brother, then he should raise him properly. Maybe he overdid it, but he had no choice. He could not allow him to hit the elder. Saewun says that he will also teach him a lesson and pulls his fist back, hitting him with a piercing fist right in the stomach, sending. The brother flies forward and starts spitting blood. Saewun dryly says that he apparently forgot how to properly control his strength. He tightens the butterfly knife and orders him to look at the new skin he bought. Saewun replies, the younger brother is just like the older one and both of them are uncontrollable. Minchuk runs in and swings from above, but Saewun dodges to the side and says that the longer they fight, the stronger he feels it. Fighting such ordinary people is too easy for him. He sweeps from below and knocks Minchuk off his feet. If something goes wrong, he will seriously kill this guy. He decisively activates only 50, then strikes with his palm, but that blow. But it only moves him with the air pressure. The guy is simply thrown against a tree. He definitely won't get out of there without internal bleeding. He crashes into something, falls to the ground, and the children are already recording everything on their phones. Saevun says that this is not what he wanted to do, and he adds that the acting is too dramatic and asks, is he an action movie actor or something like that? Then he approaches his younger brother, kicks him again, and orders the older one to respect elders, quit smoking, and not carry knives because it is dangerous. He runs away and several students call the younger brother Don Juan, but he does not respond and they decide that he is dead. Saevun confusedly recalls what was then in his head. He boasts in front of a simple person, saying that if that one dies, his own life will also end. Even though he learned it easily, the credit for everything is that he brought it from the game. He needs to train well to control it perfectly while returning home. He reaches for the receiver and his mother asks if he has eaten. He says that he already did, but his mother replies he did not respond, so she got worried and called, hoping that he is not sick. And then she asks how things are at the academy he enrolled in. Saevun says that this can be handled, and he cannot confess to her that instead of studying he is training in martial arts. Then he asks how his father is doing. He heard that he got a new job as a courier. She says that she wanted to call about this, and suddenly it turns out he got into a car accident. Saevun asks how serious it is and what exactly happened. She replies, the incident happened when he was delivering parcels. A car ran a red light and hit him hard. They did not skimp on insurance, but the operation is very expensive and she is worried whether they will raise the money. She knows that she did not send him much pocket money, so she feels awkward asking, but still hopes maybe he has money left from what she talked about. He asks her how much the operation cost, and she answers that it was about 1 to 2 million. He says, don't worry. He thinks he has found a solution, so he asks if she is okay. She says yes and apologizes for bothering him, even though he is already overwhelmed with studies. He assures her that everything is fine and will call her back. His parents moved all their lives from one rented apartment to another. His father always worked harder than anyone he knew, but as he got older, his income began to shrink. The banket's work is easy to replace, so he constantly changed jobs. Imagine someone starts sobbing and says that he was a typical child who lived off others in such a family, a hopeless burden without a future, and he hates it. But now he no longer wants to remain that way. The woman says that it looks like a very skillful work and does not look like a local product at all. He replies, in their family it has been 5 generations already. She says that the stylization was definitely not done by modern methods, and he asks how much it costs. She says it may cost more than just for the gold and asks if he wants to sell it here. And he replies that his father needs urgent surgery and he knows that this is not something he should be selling just like that, but his situation is too urgent. She says that probably means he does not have a certificate. He then leaves and she says after him, "Have a nice day." Daytime, he scrolls through his finances on the phone and says that recently gold prices have risen sharply. Even after he sent part to his parents, he still had enough to get by for some time. Seeing how happy she was, he decided, maybe he just underestimated the situation, but it does not matter, he just needs to earn a little. He will quickly get money, and then he will have to think hard about how best to sell what he brings. He says he has to pass on his mother's words, so he calls her. She had sent him her money. She asks where he got so much money from and whether he took a loan, or something like that, saying she can't spend this money knowing about it. He says that he doesn't even have a proper permanent job, so he can't take a loan. It's just money he saved up from a side job in the army. And she adds that she and his father feel very sorry. He asks her not to worry and says he will visit the hospital soon. She thanks him. Whispering, they say that this is definitely computer graphics or something like that, and it looks as if he was filmed secretly. As soon as the spell intensifies, Seo-woon immediately understands what is happening. He realized that this is a spell from Cloyd Survival, and in Korea, not just one person played that game, there were many. Eventually the video was deleted, and now they say this happens all day. At this time, Seo-woon is on the screen. He didn't even suspect how things could turn out if someone else got such an opportunity. At the same time, the shot shifts to a man who is talking on the phone. The man reports that they will shut down the internet across the entire country. A little if it comes to that, and he apologizes too much, and they will immediately take care of everything. He says he heard the guy who posted the video is Korean, and now he asks what happened. His subordinate replies that recently the number of survivors has sharply increased, so it is almost impossible to track their appearance. He throws and hits him right in the head, adding that if the number of survivors is growing, then the number of agents should also increase. He needs to find and bring this attention seeker, the scoundrel. Holding a bleeding head in his hands, he says he will do just that. The man tells them if there is blood on his carpet, he will kill. Another guy comes in and starts healing him with the survival magic of Cloyd, and he doubts they will manage to catch up. He says they are too weak. If they really are going to move, there is no carpet in this room, and that guy apparently was clearly smoking something strange. Let's say the wound says that after the summer heat, the night breeze suddenly became cool. After the first game, he has been training at night for 2 months when no one is around. He has accumulated a lot of internal energy, and he is already used to using it even more. But the main problem he faces now. Both use part of the invincible fist spatial strike. Siwoon says that this is exactly the problem he warned about. Now he is only able to summon one shadow clone. When he fought Shenturk, he could easily control 8 shadows as he wished. Apparently in that last battle, he spent too much internal energy, so now his Danshin looks pathetic. He was offended by all this. He might as well just go home and cultivate more. He got a little hungry after training and wondered what exactly he had put into his subspace. As soon as he reached out, a very bright light flashed before his eyes. And again, he found himself in survival mode while everything unfolded. He says that some people look just as confused as he did before. If he finally ended up in another game after 2 months. They say as soon as they start explaining the tutorial here, and Seo-woon doesn't understand why it is needed right now. He notices someone sitting on a statue and hears that person saying something. It seems someone else from Korea is also participating. Seo-woon grumbles that he is just trying to start a farm and it looks a bit cringe. Obviously, he had already played such games, so I hope he is not as strong a scoundrel as Sagwon. They say that if as many as 200 players have gathered, it means the game finally starts. The map was named Valley of Contras. Rewards will be given from the 20th place, so all 200 participants can pass. Seo-won looks a bit irritated and dismisses doubts. There is no risk of failure here. Yet he loses and immediately declares that he can play like a real psycho. After the briefing was laid out clearly, the same thing he already knew, they announced something Seo-won did not expect at all. It turned out that this is a 2-player game, and this completely threw him off balance. In training, they say, find someone you like and register as a pair. The game will continue until only one team remains alive, so even if only one player survives to the final, both team members will still receive a reward. If he does not gather a team within 5 minutes, he will play alone. Seo-won says he really thought so, there are more of them. There are more people than last time probably because of that. It seems everyone is meeting each other for the first time. So they bet on people they consider capable of quickly assembling a team, and if your choice is wrong, your partner can turn out to be a burden. For example, Rana says that this high school student did not look like a novice before, so he might be useful. And as soon as he glances at the statue, the boy is already gone. And Sae-won freezes in thought. Could it be that he has already found himself a partner? He says that he only needs to find anyone. He goes to ask someone, but there are already two there. This problem constantly lets me down. He keeps insisting as if he has. Here, undoubtedly, there is someone who has not yet found a pair, but now cannot find that person among everyone. He says, since it has already happened this way, he has no other choice. If he encounters one or two, he will simply kill them all and come out victorious. On the first day, we see something completely different. He points out that ruined villages are scattered around the valley. It seems he is suitable for agriculture, and he is looking for a place where he wants to land. He says that this time he will land first and destroy everyone who comes down after him. He insists that after the first game, it kept replaying in his head again and again. Likewise, he made a bunch of metal simulations for the second game. He was waiting for this day and acted exactly as planned. We see a man walking through the forest and he says he doesn't know what happened. This happens when he feels nauseous. Sae-won appears behind and the guys wonder where did his partner James go. Sae-won makes a sudden attack, breaking his barrier with a spatial strike. He falls to the ground. They tell him the opponent is already down, so you need to finish him off with the last blow before the comrade gets up. And Si-woon says that it's pleasant there is such a system. He turns around and stares at James Flayen's attack. Sae-won says that this is bad and that such a thing should be done by his teammate. James asks if he killed his comrade and adds, from the wound, it is clear that he specializes in close combat. He says, since unstoppable fists relies on bare hands, the most important thing is to know how to act against opponents with bows, spears, or swords. In real life, such weapons cannot be overcome because he practiced this technique only in imagination. And the thought that in the game he could try it out was a bit pleasing and he involuntarily smiled. James sits down again and says that it will be fun. James rushes straight at him and we see Si-woon focusing and preparing for the strike. He raises his fist and with a counterattack goes straight at James's weapon with his bare hand. He abruptly moved aside, throwing James Khan far to the side. James cannot believe it. He managed to get close and reshape his own trajectory. He traced the trajectory of his attack so quickly that Sae-won finally understands. It was his chaw. Once again, he used the spatial strike and pierced James's chest. Say that the wound presses his leg to his head and twists it outward. He stomps with his feet, tears off Bro's head and turns it into mist. No matter how much he trained, there is nothing better than mastering this in the game. So 4 people remain in this zone. It is still unclear to me whether that other guy was his partner. Then an attack flies from the side Sae-won notices at the last moment and dodges under it. Below he wonders where this arrow came from and decides to follow its trajectory. When the arrow flies in and quickly approaches, he says it must be released from one of the side houses. He does exactly that because now he continuously dodges every attack. Running, he mutters, if they really hit so accurately from afar, at first he would have thought it was Yurachana, but no, they are not as strong as him. Then the thoughts diverge, they are alone, or they are being chased by a teammate. He jumps over the wall and waves it off. It doesn't matter, the main thing is that he knows where the archer is. If he catches one, the other will come out too. If this were the previous game, he would hide in every house during farming, but now, when he is aimed at the key to life, the enemies have become just fuel that he absorbs. Suddenly 2 arrows fly in, and one of them pierces his head. And then disappearance, it was only a shadow clone. The archer is puzzled. He insists that he was sure he definitely hit him. And Sae-won's leg begins to come through the window. And the guy is still trying to understand why he disappeared, and he gets kicked hard in the head. His nose starts to bleed and Sae-won says, finally he caught him. And Sae-won already understands it was a cloak of invisibility, and that man is preparing to attack. Sae-won manages to notice his own shadow at the last moment, and when the attack, it flies in, he barely dodges and it crashes right into the door. Sae-won doubts that someone sneaked up from behind and then ran away, so he looks around in surprise and shifts his gaze to the window and notices him. Sae-won says that the boy changes position instantly, and we see him land on the ground. He places his foot on the windowsill and jumps up. He doesn't know where that cloak came from, but the attack on him during the day in that cloak was a big mistake. That object is something easy to reach. You just need to sit in ambush, and when he surrenders, all he can do is die and give up. He apologizes to his teammate, saying he chased him, but he turned out to be faster than he seemed. The teammate replies if he is an ally, he must protect him. At any cost, the elf says he doesn't see in Siwon Al, though the archer insists that they just need to kill him and nothing will change from that. Seo-woon says he should have taken him when there was a chance, and now he has 2 against 1. And then he smiles and says that maybe he can use those numbers. The boy's teammate lunges at him and insists that the wound is coming back. The archer makes a shot, say what is the point of injury. Then Seo-woon runs and clasps his hands together, preparing to make a shot. The archer calls him slippery while he loads a triple shot and he shoots it. Actually, it's called a triple shot, I just guessed. And the guy insists he never misses, and we find out his name is Alex. But the real Siwoons were above them and watching closely. Alex claims that this time he definitely caught him while Seo-woon attacks. Say that the wound hits just behind him and seems to throw a remark, "That's arrogant." Alex delivers a strong blow to his stomach. He says if his eyes suggest that he should be somewhere, that's not proof that he is really there. Alex fainted, so there is no time to waste, he must be finished quickly. A teammate mumbles that he uses strange magic, so it is logical to assume he is an illusionist. Seo-woon claims that he is just an ordinary student who simply returned, and to save his ally, he will have to eliminate him. He rushes at Seo-woon, and Seo-woon responds by attacking him in the same way. And Seo-woon replies with the same counterattack that he used against James. He says the key to counterattacks is the point from which the attack starts. You approach closer and aim right there. It hits the shoulder, but as soon as Seo-woon moves in, his arm is cut. And he uses an attack called Bloody Rush. It deeply slashes Seo-woon's side. Seo-woon says that the sword feels completely different from the spear and that he was badly cut. If he hadn't protected himself with internal energy, his arm and the rest of his body would have been torn apart. The guy says it's strange. His sword didn't cut as deeply as he expected. It depends, but it seems he's pulling some tricks again, something like those illusions from before, but he's not entirely sure himself. Seo-woon says if he can't finish him off with one strike, then all he has left is a counterattack. He thinks through exactly how he can oppose his movements. He insists that in this round there is no penalty for failure, and he will have to take a risk and try, just sitting and watching, and then he will feel his energy and deadly intent. Even if he is not able to overcome it, he better not dream about first place. For 2 months, he practiced all the ways of controlling internal energy. So after training with Daishin, he was no longer the same because he actually belonged to the few who have the rare talent to apply it. Seo-woon presses his head to the ground. He grabs the attacker's hand, and the attacker looks stunned as Seo-woon easily deflects the final attack. Seo-woon freezes in surprise and suddenly feels as if he has broken through a wall. It was him, and we learned that his name was Carl, and now the number of players is already 196. Seo-woon said that, as expected, strong guys have a lot of internal energy. And it seems he was building it all up. He pulls out a recovery scroll and asks if Alex wants to use it. He replies that of course he needs to recover a bit and gradually start farming. He shifts his gaze to Alex's cloak and asks why he got so upset and ruined the item, and adds, "We need to find a craftsman with special skills or a special crawl to repair it." He says that if he had this item, the rank upgrade would have gone without extra difficulties, but he will still keep it with him and believes it can still bring results. He takes out a bow called the Poplar Bow. Lightning once struck it, so now it allows shooting arrows with weak lightning energy. He says he didn't feel anything from the arrows that guy shot. After that, he looks for a book of the multiple shot skill. It allows shooting several arrows at once. Seo-woon claims that the guy was not an archer at all. He just trained for it in the game. He decides that it won't hurt and tries it since he has already learned. Then he raises the bow and releases several arrows. He says that it is better than the crossbow he had last time and is sure such a thing will definitely come in handy. It seems that there is still one team left in his area, so he decided to rest and gather resources before continuing. Probably because these are just village house, nothing more, just crap. He wonders how that guy managed to get an invisibility cloak in one of these buildings, insisting that he got it very low. He says that the door is locked. It seems no one has been here yet and he wants to start a real mukbang. He goes upstairs, repeating that he hopes for something good, for example, an invisibility cloak or ring sand. Now he is already at the very top. He says that sometimes everything goes like clockwork, and sometimes it just annoys him wildly. He insists that they work without any worries and wonders, do they have anything good at all? Because if they do, it will be hard for him to stand against them alone. He points to his tower and says that they can come here. One of them says to his partner, Kilroy, the door is already locked, so there is no one here. When Seo-woon watches from above, they even show that he missed the healing scroll. Seo-woon says he pushed it through a pile of junk around, but it turned out to be a useful truck. Damn, he just falls right on them. They say that if they rejoice at the healing scroll, it matches their level and the equipment they have. Their skills are not scary. Bro is about to flop belly first onto one of these guys. The plot took a rather interesting turn, but now, since these are all the available chapters, I won't be able to make the next part for some time. I really liked it. The story is quite unique, especially in how the genres combine. For example, Muram, fantasy, and battle royale elements. At first it looked boring, but everything was done so that it turned out interesting and memorable. I even said in old personal thoughts that I was surprised how well it works. And now, having seen more, I still think so. The way it holds on the formula when after death players turn into chests is very pleasant. The races were also not bad, not too fast, not too slow they give. The story doesn't force dragging pauses and gives space to catch a breath. There is little character development so far, but everything that exists is focused around Seo-woon. But as soon as he realizes the truth, it's just a game, everything begins to change. There is something deeper behind this: greed, survival instinct, or an uncontrollable desire to become stronger. As soon as he gets that ring of power and feels the surge of strength, it's instant satisfaction, just like with his first kill and magical reward. This forms a tight dopamine loop, and you feel it every time he levels up, especially after the final blow to Sagwang. Then he becomes a real beast, but I like the balance. He doesn't hold everything the key of life, which prevents the events from turning into power fantasy too quickly. It would be a bit awkward to fight children, but he was exactly that. The idea that skills and items can be saved between playthroughs and carried over into your own world is also very cool, like permanent upgrades in a roguelike game. I was also genuinely surprised when we noticed a hint that other people are being drawn into Floyd's survival. And this small detail of the universe, with an organization trying to keep everything secret, turned out to be simply successful. I had guessed this earlier and said that players might start appearing all over the world, so maybe it will grow into a full-fledged thing like Earl PUBG. Now let's talk about the fight. The fight here is smooth, flowing. It is extremely pleasant to read. Every spell and every ability must sound as if they have real power, and this is extremely important. I will not lie, it is precisely how the battles are shown that makes them truly deserved. It was not only then, when the explosion covered the entire panel. The way the action smoothly flows from panel to panel pulls the entire scene together and keeps it tense. And also his irresistible strike, which seemed to be one that would never be defeated, but turned out to be strong enough, was funny. The poor guy who came up with this simply had no inner energy, and the Shadow Clone skillies, it really is quite cool. Every time he obtains the key to life by killing someone, it is pleasant, and I especially like how this smoothness works in non-combat scenes. Such energy elevates all experience. I used to think like this. I had some predictions, this is what they were. This sat in my previous personal thoughts, but I had some predictions that were quite. Yes, for example, the mention of players when he was scrolling through sad news and the forces remained in the real world. I will make a few now. Now it seems the organization will try to put a leash on him, and then he will have to prove that they cannot hold him back. But I absolutely cannot wait to see what he will show in the second match. The two-player game is really exciting, and I think this series is incredibly cool.